Welcome to the show, everybody. Today's show almost was very, very late. When I was preparing for the show this morning, I was fed a video of Lara Trump singing Tom Petty's song, Won't Back Down. It was so nauseating, and I felt so unwell that the entire show almost had to be pushed back. But miraculously, I am here, we are here, and there is going to be a heavy focus on the economy in today's show because we are now building up a picture of where this economy is going. And it is a political story, but we really just start with the facts. And it's not, oh, everyone's now unemployed and the economy is objectively terrible. But we now have 4, 5, maybe 6 important indicators that this economy is going very much in the wrong direction. Inflation is now up. Trump said it would be down. It's up. Layoffs have hit the highest level since COVID times. Manufacturing saw its largest decline in years. And we have an environment that isn't extraordinary economically, and it signals potential problems. So let's take each of these issues one at a time, starting with today's inflation report. And then I know a lot of you have been writing to me saying, David, can we even trust inflation numbers at this point? And I'm going to get to that because that has never been an area of focus for me. We can't trust the CBO. We can't trust the BLS. That's not been the case for me during Republican presidents nor during Democratic presidents. So I want to come back to that. But let's start with inflation. Inflation is up. We got July 2025 numbers today. Tariffs are making things more expensive. This was completely predictable. We have two measures, core inflation and CPI, which is the consumer price index. Core inflation is up 0.3% over the last month. In June, it was up 0.2%. So that 0.3% increase in July is the largest single month inflation increase in 6 months. This now pushes year over year inflation for the 12-month period ending in July from rather up to 3.1%. The desirable range for inflation is 2 to 3%. I'll explain why in a moment. Core inflation is now up year over year, 3.1. Inflation is elevated by 0.1, but elevated. We then have CPI, the consumer price index. That is up 2.7% year over year. Not crazy high, but remember, Trump said prices were going to come down. Every day that inflation is greater than 0, prices are going up. Very basic math, arithmetic. The Fed likes CPI at 2%. So being at 2.7 when the Fed says we want 2 means that the consumer price index is 35% higher than the number that the Federal Reserve considers ideal. So let's now contextualize this. Tell me if this is useful, by the way. If this isn't, if you just want me to play Stephen Miller gaff reels instead, let me know. But I think that understanding how our economy works is critical. So tell me if you think that understanding these things is an important thing. First of all, stocks opened way up this morning. This inflation news is bad news. It shows that the tariffs are raising prices. Why would, as of this moment, the Dow be up 400 points? Why would the NASDAQ, as Trump calls it, be up over 100 points? If this is bad news, why are stocks up? Well, I'll explain that. The stock market is a futures market in a sense, where traders and investors are making trades based on their expectation of what's going to come in the future. Their expectation of what's going to come in the future now includes a reduction to the federal funds rate, which juices the stock market. What do I mean by that? Because inflation came in hotter than expected, because prices are increasing when Trump said that he would decrease them, traders and investors believe the Fed will meet and lower interest rates. Because of the expectation that the Fed will lower interest rates, the stock market is up as of this moment. So that's the explanation there. Let's now go to, why do we want any inflation at all? And I apologize to those who have heard me explain this before. A lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people say, well, cheaper stuff is better, so why don't we want prices to go down? Like, obviously, we get why high inflation is bad, but don't we want deflation? We don't. In the traditional understanding of macroeconomics, and you can dispute that understanding. But in that framework, which is at least nominally applied in many economic analyses, 2 to 3% inflation is enough that it would encourage people to buy stuff now, because if you wait, it'll get more expensive, right? That's the whole idea of stimulating economic activity is if you have 2.5% inflation, you would be incentivized to buy stuff now, which keeps people employed, which keeps them earning money, which then they go out and spend in the economy. That is where economic growth comes from. In a way, you can't decouple mild, or what we would call reasonable inflation, desirable inflation, from economic growth. If you accept standard macroeconomics, you recognize that growth is derived from price increases to a degree at 2 to 3% being the ideal amount. Really high inflation, we intuitively understand isn't good, because if things get too expensive too quickly, faster than your wage growth, you can't afford stuff. If you can't afford stuff, you don't buy it. The companies that sell that stuff then go, we've got no customers, we've got to lay off our employees, and it's a sort of economic doom loop. But why is deflation bad? Deflation is bad because if prices are coming down in absolute terms, if eggs are going to cost less next month than they buy, actually, eggs may not be a good example because you could delay purchasing eggs. But the idea is, if you can wait to buy stuff because it's going to be cheaper, you wouldn't buy it right now. If you don't buy it right now, that's bad for companies that are selling stuff, and it creates that same deflationary spiral. So that's why we say a little bit of inflation is good. It generates economic growth. The political question, and we're going to get in a moment to numbers that we can trust versus ones that we can't, and other elements of the economy. What is Donald Trump going to do right now? Because certainly the tariff policy is a driver here in increasing prices. And politically, there is a really difficult off-ramp for Trump just because of his personality. So we're going to get back to that. But what is Donald Trump going to do? Donald Trump has already packed his second-term cabinet with loyalists. He's threatened deportation as political punishment. He's expanded executive authority in ways we have not seen in modern history. These are real changes that are happening right now. And what's even more alarming is that a lot of the media is either glossing over the worst of it, or they're reframing it so it all sounds a little more palatable. And that is why I use Ground News. This is a news comparison tool. Doesn't just feed you headlines. It shows you, here's how different outlets, left, right, center, are covering the same story. And this is one of the few tools I know of that can really help you detect the political spin, the bias, catch stories that your usual sources might downplay or not cover at all, on everything from immigration policy to economic shifts. If you want to get a bigger picture, a broader picture of what's being reported, Ground News is an invaluable source to keep you informed. And Ground News is offering my audience 40% off their top tier Vantage plan. You'll only pay $5 a month. Go to ground.news/Pacman or enter the code Pacman in the app to get started. The link is in the description.